Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 104 of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. This week, Robin and myself are reviewing the 2020 Netflix animated film, The Willoughbys. We were honestly kind of debating when to exactly release this episode, just as things have been so turbulent within the United States recently. But we just wanted to keep a consistent upload schedule. And if nothing else, it's a distraction from trying to both go on social media and then also avoid social media because things are just very intense right now. So please just try to look out for each other and stay safe. And please continue to quarantine and do what you can to just try to help each other out. So without further ado, this is episode 104 of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast, where we review the Willoughbys. We hope you enjoy it, and take care. Bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Robin.
And we are discussing, I guess, like it's kind of just like a quarantine movie marathon recently. We decided to do The Willoughbys, which is on Netflix, 2020 film produced by Braun Studios, featuring, honestly, a pretty great cast.
Honest to God, like...
Yeah.
We'll get into this, but it is truly star-studded.
Yeah, because once I actually looked at the credits, I was like, God damn, there's a lot of people in this.
Yeah.
We had initially decided to watch this. So I've got some friends from college. We started doing these Netflix party things like every Tuesday, just because we don't know what day it is. So at least now we know when the next movie night's going to be. So we decided to do this one, and I had not seen it prior to us streaming it on there. I guess it was dark in a way that I wasn't expecting, because both Robin and myself have no backstory for this, referring to the book that was written by Lois Lowry that it's based on. Which came out in 2008, but I was getting some almost weird kind of triggery things, because it basically does deal with these two abusive parents and their very neglected children, and them basically trying to kill their parents by sending them on this elaborate vacation elsewhere so they can orphan themselves. Just honestly, I'm sold. I like that kind of story.
It is. So. I mean, I think someone said when we were watching it on the Netflix party, is that it was very Roald Dahl-esque.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, everything about it, because if you know Roald Dahl, or if you've at least read a fair amount of his books, he was very cantankerous when it came to depictions of certain parents and stuff. I mean, that's all Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is.
Oh,
is
yeah,
basically
absolutely.
Just showcasing bad parenting, and this movie has it to a T as well. I've seen some other people talking about this on IMDB, because apparently this is a very divisive score, which I was surprised by, but a lot of people were mentioning that it was Roald Dahl-esque because of how much derision and hatred there is towards these parents, who are unambiguously awful. I think we can agree on that.
They're so
they're entertaining to watch, but if I knew them in real life, I would probably want to murder them.
Oh no, I probably would have called CPS on them.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely.
It's the you love to hate sort of character.
Oh yeah.
Because they're just so obnoxious and so unrepentantly terrible that you can't help but be like, God, I hate them and everything they do. But it's fun to watch them be stupid. It's fun to watch them be these terrible people in a weird way. You know what I mean?
They're entertaining to watch, but it's here's the thing. If they were just a couple that was just completely up on each other all the time, I wouldn't really care, it's they're not really hurting anybody, but when you throw kids into it, I'm just oh no, this goes into asshole territory. I have a real problem with that.
Same.
If you can't spend that amount of time and attention on having kids, you shouldn't be having kids, period.
Yes.
If that's not an interest of yours, just don't bother, because there's plenty of kids out there that do need parents, but I don't know.
I mean, it's pretty clear that this family has money. It would not be hard for them to pay for him to get a vasectomy, or for her to get her tubes tied, or anything, right?
I'm genuinely astonished that the kids grew to as old as they are. Let's break down the characters. So there are these, the two main parents are called mother and father, obviously, even though...
Yeah, they don't actually get names.
But it seems weird, because they hate being parents, so why would they call each other that?
It's so strange, and so, it bothers me on a visceral level, because throughout the movie, they only refer to each other as father and mother. The only thing I can assume is that they've always called each other this, And that's fucking weird.
Yeah, like, assuming that it's some kind of weird sexual kink name thing. Because, like, I mean, like, look, I'm not above using terms like daddy or mommy when it comes to things like that, but it's infinitely creepier if they, like, you know, I think that the whole style of the story itself lends it to being, like, using more old-fashioned terms, like mother or father, or
yeah,
Mike
so the
Pence.
mother or father thing, like, it is weird, but it does fit the tenor of, like, especially those characters, because the Willoughbys themselves, that family, seem very, like, rooted in sort of, like, an older sort of tradition, and, like, just the way that mother and father talk is so, like, early, mid-19th century.
Yeah, like, oddly theatrical, even though, like, I think the thing that surprised me the most is the fact that they could even afford the lot that their house is still on, because it's kind of like in Up, where they have a bunch of, like, like, sky rises and everything just surrounding them, but, like, they still have this house, and, like, and the garden is really cool. Like, we should mention about the aesthetic with this film is that it's extremely pretty, and the way that the animation is done is that it's CGI, but it seems like it has a slower frame rate, so it feels like it's stop motion.
It does.
It's really, really pretty. I love how they did it.
The one that blows me away constantly is the hair, because the hair doesn't look like
hair.
Yeah. It looks like yarn. It looks like it was knit. It's so cool.
And also because yarn is like a recurring thing, because the mother is constantly knitting. And a lot of it is like her knitting with the father's hair, which is like, gross. But I guess people have also been knitting with cat hair fairly recently. It's been like a thing, which is like, it doesn't make it better, but, you know.
I don't like that.
I don't like it either. But yeah, it's a thing.
Awful quarantine trends.
Yeah, I know. Oh, gross. I really like the characters so that they've got them broken down to, there's the oldest boy, Tim, who is voiced by Will Forte, or if you are familiar with Clone High, Abraham Lincoln.
Abe Lincoln. You know what hurts most? This nail I just stepped on. But the betrayal, that hurts the second most.
It's so true. There's the second oldest child, which is Jane, who is, I think she's voiced by Alicia Cara, who is a pop singer.
Yeah.
And if you've seen Moana, she sings the pop song at the end of that. She also did that song Stay with, I think, the Chainsmokers.
I think she also did a song for Adventure Time.
Yeah, I think she did too, something like that. But yeah, so she voices Jane. That was one criticism that I did kind of, or at least like when we were doing the watch party, one of my friends had mentioned like they thought that it was a little bit uncanny with her voice pairing.
It felt very strange.
It was too studio produced, I think. Like it seemed like, wow, she's really had a lot of voice lessons, but she clearly isn't because they're neglected kids.
Yeah, well, the problem is you go from like normal voice acting in a booth to like, we clearly produced this track.
Like there's obvious reverb, and there's obviously like they warmed it up slightly so that it sounds like the music sounds a bit richer, which it was like it was a little weird.
It sounds nice, but it is tonally strange inside of a movie. It's supposed to be diegetic sound that the character's actually
like
singing.
They're actually showing her singing on screen, but it's like, but she's got such that bit was a little uncanny. I mean, I loved her character. I thought she was great.
Yeah, she's outstanding. But that aspect was frustrating.
For sure. And then we've also got the twins, the Barnabys.
The Barnabys. I love the Barnabys.
Voiced by acclaimed Canadian mimic comedian Sean Cullen, who, if you're familiar with Mad TV and Corky and the Juice Pigs, he was in that, which someone will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Tracy brought this up
he's
in the
legitimately,
stream.
He's a very talented comedian. I think
clearly,
I think you would dig him.
I'm sure. It was just really funny because you're like, oh, it's this guy from this thing, and
no one else knew what I was talking
crickets.
about.
And you're like, fine.
My friend Chris in Boston will know what I'm talking about because we both used to watch his comedy stuff a lot. So, but no, so like the gist of it is that these kids, after years of being neglected, basically decide to send their parents on this dangerous sightseeing tour, hopefully killing them so that they can become orphans, which is like,
yes.
Yeah, sign me up. Because like the more you kind of see of like the parents are just so gleeful when it comes to like neglecting them. Like they don't even let them eat food the same day. They have to have like the yesterday's food, but there's seldom anything left for them. Like I'm genuinely just surprised that these kids have survived this long because like the parents can't pry each other off of each other.
Yeah, you couldn't get a non-stick spatula between them to knock them apart. Oh, they do actually have names beyond mother and father. They're Walter and Helga. Oh. I didn't know that.
I didn't know
that
either.
You don't get that. I don't know that you get that from the movie itself, so that's fine. They make this plan to become orphans, and then they can be adopted by someone else into a better family or something. What ends up happening is when the parents go away, they get a nanny for them, and they're like, but good nannies are expensive. Oh, mother, we'll just spend little money on a cheaper, worse nanny. perfect.
And lo and behold, she's awesome. And we forgot to mention that there's actually there's kind of like an introduction to the plot. Is they find a baby basically, or a baby is left in front of the gate of their house, and the Barnabys and Jane go to investigate. And Tim obviously wants them to get rid of it because babies are the most childish children of all. But like this baby is basically kind of like Experiment 626 version of Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, because it's just constantly running around all over the place, causing havoc and destruction.
Yeah, no, it's a mix of Jack and Stitch.
Yeah, I got that impression quite
wild.
A bit. But she's also very, very cute.
She is super cute.
And they call her Ruth, which is cute.
They end up dropping her off in front of a candy factory.
Fuck, what is his name? It's Commander
Melanoff.
Yeah, Commander Melanoff, played wonderfully by Terry Crews.
Yeah, boy.
This is the and apparently this movie was directed by the same guy who directed Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs too. And you can kind of tell because it definitely has that sort of sense of humor. Like,
yeah, it has a bit of that same energy.
Yeah, stylistically, it's quite similar. So. In a good way, yeah.
Oh, one thing we forgot to note, and the baby thing reminded me of this, is this whole movie is narrated by the cat, played by Ricky Gervais, which is okay. He does
noted Gervais, Ricky Gervais.
Noted Gervais, Ricky Gervais. Noted Ricky Gervais, Ricky.
Noted Lime Ricky Gervais.
Yep. He's actually pretty funny. Like, my favorite is when they see the basket. He's like, now I know what you're all thinking. What's in that box? And can it be removed so I can sit in
it? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, the cat was very cute because, like, the cat is basically built like my cat, which is, like, adorable, but, you know, quite thick. Yeah. But, like, I was surprised because Ricky Gervais in general, like, he has his audience. He's a very divisive comedian for a lot of things because he really wants you to know that he's an atheist, which, whatever, fine. But, like, it just in general, he can be a bit grating. But within this, I didn't mind him at all.
No,
like, he actually did pretty well. And he added some Britishness that I guess they needed, or some...
A little bit of it.
Yeah, a little bit.
So we get So after the kids... we meet the nanny, who's voiced by Maya Rudolph.
She crushes it. She's great in this. Like, she's so cute.
She literally, like, bursts into this movie and, like, is immediately super fun because of course she is.
Yeah. And also, like, even her design is that, like, I mean, like, the Willoughby children all have the same build as their parents, which is basically a spoon with stick figure arms and legs. But, like, she bursts into the room. She's got this gigantic heart-shaped hair thing. She's very soft. She's very round. Like, she's, like, you know, she's adorable, basically. And, like, she genuinely is just trying to take care of them, and a lot of that revolves them eating oatmeal, which I guess is fair, because those kids barely get to eat anything.
Yeah.
I was starting to think that she was on the Quaker Council or something.
Oatmeal's a weirdly consistent, like, almost theme in this movie.
Like, push the porridge. We have to get this brand deal.
The porridge is going bad. Push it. So
we gotta move this oat.
We find out the parents are on their death accident cruise, or whatever you want to call it, and they're like, we're out of money. We'll sell the house. So
yeah, I don't know what these people do. Presumably they've just been living off of their family wealth or something.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't see them, like, work or do anything, really. Just basically, like, just look at each other all day.
Yep. He grows his mustache so she can knit with it, which is
there you go.
Several levels of awful.
Maybe she has an Etsy. I don't know. It's still gross, but yeah. I wouldn't buy it.
Nope. Wouldn't buy anything from those fuckers.
No.
They try to prevent the sale of the house. The kids do. The kids and the nanny do, and then
in a very Home Alone-esque montage is, I guess, the only way that you can really interpret it.
Oh no, it is. It's 100% Home Alone, and it's so good. Thinking that the nanny is actually working for, well, the nanny is working for their parents, but thinking that she's on the parents' side, they port the nanny to which is the Department of Orphan Services.
Yes, and that's, like, the most tragic thing is that, like, as much of an idiot as Tim does tend to be, especially because he unnecessarily speaks in a menacing voice when he's, like, referring to a text message she got from the parents about her selling the house or whatever. Like, at the same time, like, it's amazing that they are as well adjusted as they are and have, like, a fairly decent, like, internal, like, compass of, like, their conscience, basically.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, like, Tim genuinely does not know how to interact with this person who's trying to look out for him. And it's very tragic in that regard because it's like he assumes that she's doing something negative, you know?
Well, it's a little, like, it's funny because So Tracy and I were talking about this before. We couldn't find a good summary of the book to get a sense of the difference.
You can't really find much, like, outside of like maybe Goodreads or something, but
yeah. But what I found amusing is that I guess Lemony Snicket did a review.
Yes.
And there's definitely also, like we said, Roald Dahl, but there's also a bit of the energy of Lemony Snicket in the fact that like this one of the ongoing jokes is that this is like a sad story or whatever going throughout, that these kids aren't going to be happy, whatever, from the narrator. But there's definitely the energy of like incompetent adults, or like adults not being totally trustworthy inside of this movie for these kids. Which, you know, if all you have is those two dipshits.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable. And also, like, the fact that their parents are so unnaturally lucky when it comes to avoiding death is that, like, the only thing that can stop them is snow, because they survive being, like, crushed and eaten by a lot of things.
So eventually, Nanny breaks them out of Ooh, and then they reunite all the kids, and then they go to get their parents back. So they're not going to be
with the help of the candy company owner.
Yeah, with
Terry
Commander
Crews.
Malinov, Commander Terry Crews. And so they build a giant, like, rainbow candy blimp to fly to Switzerland, which is where their parents are. And they found out their parents have been frozen. And the way they hear them the way they find them is through realizing that they are still frozen and sucking face.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's kind of what I was assuming that they were going to do. You know,
yeah,
like,
I mean,
like the one thing that they can keep preserving is that.
Yeah, I hate them.
I don't know, like, because so they're voiced by Martin Short and Jane Krakowski, respectively. And I mean, like, they have a lot of fun with it, you know, like, because they're such unrepentantly terrible people.
I do want to talk about this, like, so. Again, we talk about, like, them being, like, terrible people and the love to hate aspect of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what I love about this movie is you get to the end of, like, near the end of it, and Tim gives this heartfelt speech about wanting to be a family and, like, trying to be a good family. And for a moment, it looks like the parents are going to be good parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then they take a hard left and go back to what they do, which is they steal the dirigible that the kids had built and leave the kids to freeze.
I mean, I will say this. I appreciate the consistency, because I like, just in general, because there tends to be, like, recently sort of an attempt to redeem certain villains, especially, like, I think it's mostly, like, in a kids series sort of thing, or like TV shows or animated shows that tend to be geared more towards a younger audience. But I like the fact that, like, this just addresses, hey, these people are terrible. They kind of deserve to die. You can't redeem them. They don't genuinely care about what happens to you. They only care about themselves. It's fine. You get carte blanche. They're going to die. No one will blame you for it. Like, I don't mind that at all. I'm glad that they did that.
Yeah, me too, because I really like that they're just unrepentantly who they are, and it would feel so out of tenor, and so it would just feel wrong to me, like the way the rest of that movie is built up, if that was the direction they went.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you have any kind of exposure to, like, recurring, like, abusive relationships, especially referring to families, like, you can kind of get this sort of idea that, like, especially ones that tend to be more manipulative, like, these guys are just kind of idiots, and at least they own the fact that they're idiots and they're just obsessed with each other.
Yeah, no, they're just chuckle fucks.
Yeah, exactly. But it can be a thing in some families where, like, they will, like, say, like, oh yeah, I can change, like, I'll do this thing, but then maybe they'll tone it down for, like, a week, and then it gets worse and worse, and then, like, it lulls the person into not really trusting whatever's going on, or, like, not trusting their own beliefs and stuff. And it's just that part's tragic. Like, I can't look down on these people for just owning who they are, you know? Like, fine, just go fuck off, do whatever you want, just leave these kids alone, because you clearly don't deserve them.
Yeah, and I think I think it ends up, like, even though it's kind of like a pain in the ass dealing with these characters, I like that they went for that sort of, like, the fake out maneuver on that aspect of it.
It was funny. I did laugh. I was like, oh my God. I was about to get really mad. I'm like, oh, thank God, they're still terrible.
Oh no, they're still just pieces of shit.
Yeah,
awesome.
But hey, at the very least, we get the whole found family thing, which is, like, I like that is a trope within this movie, that they've got both, like, the nanny, who is adorable and apparently also an orphan herself.
Yes.
As said by the terrifying Annie Lennox from the Eurythmics, looking people from the basically social services, I guess.
Yeah, well, the Department of Orphan Services.
Yeah.
Which for some reason isn't DOS, as instead ooh.
Not the right abbreviation, but
yeah.
It's okay. It works.
That was one element of this movie that I thought was... Well, so yeah, she was an orphan, and then we get this, like, scene of, like, the kids living with the nanny and Captain Melanoff and Ruth as like a whole big family.
Yeah, it's cute.
Which is super sweet.
But I do like when they are temporarily put into other like family housing, like when they're basically reassigned to other families since they're basically technically orphans until their family or their parents return. They get put into like reasonably like decent homes, even though the Barnabys are like put in front of the internet basically, so they absorb everything.
Straight up like TV parents.
I mean, but I guess like it makes sense for the Barnabys specifically because like they are kind of creepy, but they also are obviously very bright and they're great at inventing. Like you can see that whatever traits the parents did not have in terms of inventiveness or creativity or determination.
Whatever positive qualities those parents could have inherited, they instead gave to their children.
It skipped a generation, and thank God it did. Yeah, like I was glad that Netflix had picked something up like this because I think that this would be a hard sell for a lot of theaters. Mm-hmm. If you just take the premise on its face, like kids basically trying to murder their own parents, it sounds like it's not great, you know?
Yeah, it sounds wild in a bad way.
It sounds like it's got like a Munchausen syndrome by proxy kind of thing going on, but it really doesn't. I mean, like it's like they're not getting poisoned. They're just like their parents just don't have the attention or care for them. And I'd just be like, then just don't have kids. Like, put them up for adoption. I don't know. Like, if you know you can't do it, don't do it. I don't know. It's just, it's weird. I think it's a pride thing. Like, they just didn't want to admit that they couldn't do it.
I don't think it's even that. I think you're giving them too much credit. I think they just don't even have the self-awareness to be like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have kids.
Yeah, the mental or emotional bandwidth to understand what condoms are.
No, their bandwidth begins and ends with fucking.
Yeah, pretty much. And they apparently do it a lot because they're not just because of the kids, but like they like a lot of scenes involve like the mother and the father basically making like these weird gurgling like sounds at each other.
Oh my
which
God.
I'm like, ew. But and also see the first time we saw the bedroom, I'm like, oh God, it must stink so bad in there.
Yeah, no, there's no way that isn't just a cesspool of awful.
Ugh. Yeah, I mean, in general, I really did like the look of this overall because I was kind of under the impression that they were going for some kind of like maybe like a 60s or 70s kind of tilt to it, just because of like the look of the characters was a bit mod and a little bit like it almost like I don't want to say dated, but it just looked like it was of a very specific time. But then of course you see everybody looking at their phones. So I'm like, you really didn't have to do that because there isn't a whole lot of phones that get used in it aside from the like the whole like the Chekhov's cell phone basically that Tim ends up using and misinterpreting the message.
Well, but I think there's also like a level at which like I think that was a very intentional choice in the sense of like showing just how sort of like unfamiliar with reality this family is as a whole.
Because the kids don't even know what TV is.
They just don't exist in the same world until their parents are gone.
Yeah.
Right? Like
pretty much.
I think it heightens the like oddity of meeting an adult who isn't one of their awful horny parents.
Yeah, who isn't just like a terrible self-serving asshole, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I think it just heightens that because not only is this person nice, but also like they have technology, like a thing I've never seen before, right? Like I think there's maybe a little bit of that is sort of at work here.
I did find it a little bit strange that Tim specifically had so much reverence for his ancestors because it seemed like the Willoughbys, like the generations before them, had actually done a lot of really great things, or at least that they'd been very influential people that accomplished so much. And the parents were just like, nope, all we need to do is fuck, basically, and then we're good. Like there were no other like bigger aspirations. Like that was it. And then they're just like, oh, we have these 4 kids we don't care about. Let's sell our house and go on vacation indefinitely. And I'm just like, that sucks. But like Tim still feels like he has to represent the Willoughbys as a like just like as like a family name kind of thing. And his siblings obviously don't have the same interest in it because they're like, all we know is shit. So why would we want to be associated with them?
That's definitely like a way of responding to that sort of scenario, is like clinging to something. And also like there was definitely a point in time for his character that it was just him, right? And so he was like, I think he was maybe clinging to his ancestors as a way of like having something to identify with and like also occupy himself with,
or also like just any semblance of identity, because like the parents it had really shown no general interest in them at all. Like all they basically do whenever the kids are in the room is just blame them for stuff that the kids obviously didn't do, or that it wasn't like it wasn't Tim's fault specifically or something like that. It's just like Like they're just so childish and irresponsible in general.
Yes,
that it's like once you see the kids going together on this mission to bring this baby, basically just to like the candy factory with those adorable gigantic ducks that are probably going to die pretty soon. Ducks. Let's be honest.
Oh, but I love those fucking ducks.
They were so cute, though.
They were good.
I mean, I hope we're not skipping around too much because I'm really not trying to. But like the story in itself is very self-contained.
It's actually pretty pretty simple, straightforward in a weird way. But like, I just think this movie's a lot of fun to watch. Like both in the sense of like, it's just really easy to engage with, but like visually, it's so much fun. And they're having a lot of. It's clear that there's like a good time was had making this thing.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I think of the catapult, or the nanny.
I think nanopult, yeah.
We skipped over the nanopult. The Barnabys invent a nanopult, and it's just a giant catapult, and they're like, how are we gonna get her to sit in this? And she immediately like, oh, this is a fun little seat. They're like, yeah. And then she's like praising them, and they end up launching Tim into the window, and he just slides down, and they open it, so he just falls out.
He's fine.
And that whole scene is just so like, it's so funny. It's just so goofy.
Yeah, I really love like the gestures that they have. Like it's I'm kind of glad that this was the same director that did Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs too, because you can kind of tell it with some of the movements and stuff, especially for Tim, just because the kids in general are so lanky that they get to go into like a lot of extreme like right angles and like 45-degree angle pose things.
Well, I think if I want to nail it down, I think that's one of the things about this movie that's so charming to me. Is that where we're at in like popular animation, it's rare that it gets to be this cartoony. You know what I mean? Like this in some ways is akin to watching like, it's almost like a modern, what do we want to call like, descendant of something like Looney Tunes, where things are just like kind of goofy and like characters act in kind of like weird ways in a way that you don't get in a lot of other stuff that's out there right now. Like certainly never in a fucking Disney movie.
No, yeah, I would say that like to that point, it's nothing quite as cartoony as what you would see in like say Storks or anything from Warner Animation Group, because they tend to really push it. I think that in general, it's just like the sense of style for this is like it's so much like a living picture book, and like the way that they have the kind of stilted animation that works with that is that like it's almost as though like, and this is gonna, I hope this doesn't sound like too technical or weird or whatever, but like you know, like how whenever you're like say if you're watching an animated movie, like especially CGI, and they have certain scenes where they're blocking out the animation for like going between both like keyframes and then in between frames, it's almost as though like a lot of their actions go onto those keyframes, because like it's the animation itself, it's not super blocky, but it's very deliberate in that they don't want to over animate anything, which I like. Except of course for when it comes for like things like textures, like the smoke in this basically just looks like wool, which is awesome.
Oh my God, I love it.
The texturing in this is phenomenal, like especially for hair and all that.
They have such a good sense of what they want the sort of like the visual aesthetic and the broader sort of I guess humorous aesthetic to be.
It's simple, but it's very appealing. Like they don't really strive for any major realism. Like they look like they could have been doodled by kids, basically.
Oh no,
not in a condescending way. Like they seem like they'd be very easy to draw.
No, it's totally, again, it's very like kind of cartoonish and like fun, and I love that about it. Like that's one of the things that makes me really enjoy it.
I think that you appreciate it more on the second viewing too, or at least I did. Like number one, because we had the chat going the first time.
Yeah, so I'm like both trying to keep up with the chat and also like watch the movie. Yeah,
but and then like on the second viewing, like I was looking for certain like visual gags, like say like for Terry Crews's character specifically, everything about his outfit is a visual gag, because since he owns this candy company, you know, there'd be things like he's got medals made out of like little brightly colored wrapped candies. Like he's got epaulettes made out of waffles.
His sash is decorated by the little dot candies.
Yeah, the little candy, like the paper dot, like candy things.
He is by himself just a visual joy.
His hat is a marshmallow. Like I think his body's supposed to be made out of fondant. Like I
mean, it kind of looks that way, right? Like,
and I'm like, I really appreciate that kind of stuff, because it's just like in terms of, because we were kind of doing this in the chat before, but like we were sort of dunking on Illumination, because what this movie does in terms of the character design is that like both the Barnabys are extremely similar to each other, and it, you know, like so that it shows that their personalities are pretty much identical almost, but like they're not like the creepy Shining twins really.
No, not at all.
Yet Tim is obviously very kind of sheltered, so he's always wearing his little helmet thing, and Jane is very free spirited, so she's a lot more open to like being more fluid with her movements and everything. Just by looking at the character design, you know exactly who they are.
Yeah, you have a very clear, like, it comes down to a matter of, like, good design of, like...
Yeah, it's good visual language for them.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, and it's so well done. And again, like, I mean, I don't know what the budget for this was, but...
I've got it open right here, but I can't see it. And in general, Netflix does not disclose stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm curious what that was, but I'm betting it wasn't... I mean, It's not Disney, so I don't think they pumped, like, a grand amount of money into it, but I'm sure it also wasn't, like, Illumination, where they pumped, like, as little as possible into it.
Oh, here. Sorry, I just found a bit of trivia here referring to the character design. So apparently they were designed by Craig Kellman. I guess he designed the characters for DreamWorks' Madagascar, Hotel Transylvania by Sony Pictures, and MGM's The Addams Family, so meaning like the one that they did in October of 2019. So some of those designs in Addams Family were not great, but the main characters were fine. Yeah, also because they were based off of the comic book strip characters for the Addams Family.
Comic strips, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like in general, because I was reading some of the other like just reviews for this on IMDb, and I'm like, I don't get why people don't like it. Like maybe it's just more of like an extreme sort of thing. Like if someone is very like an ardent, like super parent, like then they would probably take offense to this, where it's just like, no, like the parents are shown to be objectively really not that good people. Maybe they don't deserve to be killed straight up, but they certainly shouldn't have these kids. So
yeah, but I feel like the kind of person who's offended by this is the same.
They're just projecting, basically. Like maybe they are.
Well, I literally someone posted this. My son's in like 6th grade, and they've recently started calling me Karen because of my attitude and my chic haircut. Is there a legal way I can get them to stop? And I'm like, well,
this is my stop. Bye.
You're trying to sue 6th graders.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck's wrong with you, but you fucked up.
Like, look, 6th graders they can be jerks, but like in general, it's like the whole like all the kids saying "okay, boomer." Like I've been called a boomer, and I'm like 31, so
yeah,
I'm like I mean, like, but it's usually just like it's like people like they're just kids taking the piss, you know. And it's like, well, and if you're getting called a Karen, maybe you're acting like a Karen, like a "can I speak to your manager" kind of thing.
Yeah, which like. Yeah.
I mean, I like
maybe it's the call to self-reflect.
Yeah, I mean, like mayhaps there is some precedent, you know, like because we're not all great people 100% of the time, but if you're consistently acting like a Karen, mayhaps reevaluate your behavior. That's all.
But and that's the kind of person I imagine gets like offended by these characters because they're. I mean, if you're getting offended that someone calls you Karen, God, what is it like to have such thin skin, I wonder?
I don't know, but
we're off track now.
No, but I think it's just like the principle of it is that like what I got from it was that the ones that tended to get the most offended in the reviews, they either said it was boring or that it was too weird or they thought it was too dark, or they just believe that respect your elders is a given. And I don't necessarily believe that that's true.
No,
I think that respect, like with any relationship, you have to earn it, basically. Yeah. And I think that's a legit kind of thing. It's like if you need to have complete and total obedience all the time and cannot handle anything else than that, then you're gonna have a tough time in general. So I don't. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now.
I agree with you. I don't understand how someone would call this movie boring.
I don't see it at all.
You and I are just watching different fucking movies.
No,
period.
yeah. I was like, the instant I saw that, I was like, did you see the same movie I did?
Were you watching this movie? Are you sure?
Did you have your eyes covered? Like, I don't know. Like, I could see how maybe some of it might be a little divisive for some people, but in general, I don't think that there's anything really wrong with it.
I can see the argument that it's too weird, like it's goofy.
I mean,
but,
like, you know, if you read the description on Netflix and it's not appealing to you, don't watch it. That's it.
It's a very simple road, like, you know what, I'm not interested in watching a bunch of children be effectively abused by their parents.
Yeah. It's
the fact of being ignored. I don't want it.
It's like,
cool.
I don't watch movies like Saw for a reason, because I don't watch Hostel because I don't go after those kinds of movies.
Yes.
That's not the kind of thing that I want to watch, so I don't watch it. That's it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And I think it's just like there's this weird sort of assumption with like some children's movies, like especially like if they come from Disney in general really just kind of wants to push that they want to be as family friendly as possible, and they're really not trying to go to any extremes to offend people. And for a lot of the time that they can be fairly successful in that they make a good, interesting movie that is approachable, but it's like you can't satisfy people 100% of the time. There's still going to be people that are going to hate the thing that you make, or they just won't agree with the message, and that's fine, you know.
Well, and also, like, the other thing is, ultimately, the most memorable things are not safe choices. They are risky choices.
Exactly.
And, like, to point to, like, I'm getting on my own soapbox now, but, like, to point to one example, if you look at Back to the Future, think about that movie on an objective level.
Yeah.
The plot of which is a kid who's friends with, like, an 80-year-old disgraced scientist. Like a 65-year-old disgraced nuclear physicist.
Yeah, but
my bad.
And Marty, he's obviously 16. Like he's 16, 17. Yeah,
like,
he's in high school.
Goes back in time and almost bones his mother.
Yeah, I mean, like he basically has to force his parents to hook up, but has to change the circumstances so they end up wealthier, even though his mom tries to come on to him multiple times.
Yeah, like what that's such a wild concept when you think about it, but it's amazing. It's a super successful movie. It did really well, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and it's just like there's just like those are the kind of movies that will resonate with people.
Yes,
you know?
like that's something that's enduring in a way that I don't know, The Good Dinosaur isn't.
I don't know if The Good Dinosaur is really that much to like compare to though. Like just in general.
That's my point. But that's a Disney movie that's trying to appeal to everyone. And no one responded.
I would rather say that for Toy Story 4 because it did good, but
fair.
Who cares? Because there's no real extremes with it. Like, did it really have to, like, the overwhelming gist that I got from people was them responding, did this need to exist? No. Was it pleasant and was it nice to look at? Yes. Then I'm like, I'm sorry, that's a movie that doesn't need to exist.
Yeah.
You need to have a point. You need to have some kind of message or some kind of thing that you're trying to fight or argue against, or that you're trying to present in a way that will challenge your audience. If you're not going to do that, then I don't think it's that good of a story, frankly. I don't know. Sorry, that was another soapbox. Mayhaps we'll cut that out. I don't know.
We're getting on soapboxes now. Maybe time to wrap this thing up.
I think that's probably plenty.
Yeah.
Long story short, you should watch this movie because it's fun. Ricky Gervais is not too obnoxious. It's a good time.
I am not a fan of the star-studded cast as a gimmick of movies, but that's not part and parcel of the advertising for this thing at all. And like honestly, they all crush it. They're all really fucking good in this.
Yeah, and I think overarching the story and the characters are interesting enough that they will keep you going. And the voice thing I think is just kind of incidental.
That's my thought is that I think they just like that they could have done better. I think they could have like just not lifted the track from her CD and put it in the movie, which is what it feels like.
Yeah. I was like, guys, fade it a little bit, like make it waver a little, like have her not be that good. I don't know.
she's a kid singing, not a kid singing in a fucking recording studio.
I know, but it sounded like there was soundproofing near her, and I know that there was.
That's what I mean, right? Like that's the thing. Like it sounds like a studio mix when she's singing in, I think, a hippie's basement or something.
And she's also supposed to be like 12. I don't know, but that's just me.
She's good. Anywho. What I'm saying is watch the Willoughbys. It's a lot of fun. You get to see Martin Short and Jane Krakowski chew the scenery at each other over and over.
It's so true.
You get to see Ricky Gervais be a surprisingly delightful, very chubby cat. You basically get to see Abe Lincoln from Clone High, but a redheaded child.
And two freaky twins.
Yeah, and two weird twins.
There you go. But yeah, I guess that's closing thoughts. Robin, where can they find you?
As always, you can find me on Twitter at lobster_writer and Instagram at lobsterwriter. Tracy, where do they find you?
Thank you, Robin. They can find me on Instagram and Twitter via @TCTroush. If you have any questions or reviews, things you want us to check out, please contact us through Twitter. It's generally the best way to do so. If it's easier for you to find our episodes on YouTube, you can just look for Not Joanna Eggs podcast or just Not Joanna Eggs. You'll see our little logo, and all the episodes are automatically uploaded there. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. Like, do you have any other projects you want to plug or anything?
So it might be out by the time we release this one. Keep your eyes peeled. I'm working on another podcast that'll start releasing soon. So if you're interested, keep an eye on my Twitter. You will absolutely see something about it there.
I'm excited to hear that one.
I'm pretty excited. I was editing an episode last week and I was like, man, this was so much fun.
Do you want to tell them what it is?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, I'm working on a new podcast with two of our other good friends, Josh and John. John's been on the podcast. We have yet to work Josh in, but we are doing a D&D podcast. We call it Tabletop Buffoonery. John and Josh, how do I put this? Like, almost defiantly do not know how to play D&D. And so it's them being like it's all of us being goofballs, but them being goofballs and me like trying desperately to corral them into doing a thing that isn't like trying to get a cat person to give them a kiss.
Standard, yes.
Yeah,
I mean, I can only say it is that John and Josh both have like a very like intense, sometimes manic energy about them.
Oh my god,
they're extremely funny. Like, they're awesome.
I'm probably gonna start releasing it soon, but it's a lot of fun and I'm excited for it to come out.
Sounds neat. All right.
As always, you can find us on YouTube at search for Not Joanna Eggs. Please like and subscribe. It's YouTube language. Don't care. If you enjoy our podcast, please rate us on whatever thing you use. It helps us out. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah. Thank you. Stay safe in this quarantine. We love you.
Please, I know it sucks. Please attempt to stay home as much as you can.
Yeah.
Please.
Keep up that social distancing.
I'm begging you. I need to be out of this fucking apartment by October. For the love of God. I am begging you.
It's going to be the perfect Halloween, I swear to God.
I swear to God, it's on a goddamn Saturday this year.
Well, it's also supposed to be like a full moon or something. Yeah. Like, it's everything. It's all the good things.
What the fuck? Like, we have to make this happen. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much
for
listening.
Guys.
We will talk at you another time.
Okay. Take care. Bye. Hey guys, thanks again so much for listening. Our intro music is Don't Hold My Breath by Ben Briggs. The outro is Wet Dreams by Phonetic Hero. Both were found on ocremix.org. If you like the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us, or tell a friend to check us out. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Find the show website via notjoannaeggs.tumblr.com. Follow us on Twitter via @lobster_writer and @TCTrash. Not Joanna Eggs, because animation is for everybody. I love it when you call me Big Baby.